A lot of green card holders assume the rules stay the same unless they hear a major announcement. But in 2026, the bigger risk for many families isn't an obvious headline. It's quiet policy shifts and new procedures that can create problems later at the airport, during a renewal, during an employer check, or even years down the road when someone applies for citizenship and realizes their paperwork doesn't match what the government now expects. This isn't meant to scare you, and it's not a call to panic. It's about awareness, because the way the system evaluates compliance is becoming more data-driven and more documentation-focused. And when the standards get tighter, small gaps, missed notices, outdated addresses, incomplete records, or travel patterns that aren't well documented can cause delays, extra screening, or difficult questions at exactly the wrong moment. Here's what makes updates like this tricky. Your green card can still look perfectly fine. The expiration date on the card might not change. Your right to live and work in the United States still exists, but the expectations around maintaining that status can shift through new requirements, new reporting tools, and more connected databases behind the scenes. In other words, my card is valid and my file is clean and up to date aren't always the same thing anymore. Many people also assume these changes only matter for a small group, like people who travel constantly, people with legal trouble, or people using benefits. But some updates, especially those tied to identity verification and record keeping, can apply broadly. That's why the most useful question today isn't only, is my green card still valid? It's also, am I meeting the current compliance expectations, and can I prove it if I'm ever asked? Hi, I'm Sophia, and I focus on translating complicated immigration processes into practical steps families can actually use. No drama, no politics, just clarity. And a quick reminder before we continue, this video is general information, not legal advice. Immigration rules and enforcement practices can vary based on facts and can change over time. If you have concerns about your specific situation, it's smart to consult a qualified immigration attorney. Now, the first area many people overlook involves identity and record updates. For years, a lot of green card holders treated immigration paperwork like something you only deal with near renewal time. But modern systems increasingly rely on updated biometrics, verified identities, and current contact information, especially as more services move online and databases sync across agencies. So here's a practical takeaway that protects you regardless of what specific policy changes are happening in a given year. Make sure your information is always current. If you move, update your address properly and promptly using the correct government process. Don't assume mail forwarding is enough. A missed notice is one of the most common ways people fall behind without realizing it, and catching up later can be stressful. Also, build a simple immigration file for yourself. Keep copies of key documents in one place, both digitally and physically if possible. That includes your green card, passport ID page, prior immigration notices, and any documentation that shows your ongoing ties to the United States. Next, let's talk about the issue that creates the most anxiety for many families: international travel. Travel has always been part of life. Visiting family, handling responsibilities abroad, work trips, emergencies. The point isn't that green card holders can't travel. The point is that travel tends to be one of the clearest data points immigration officers use to evaluate whether the United States is still your primary home. And as enforcement becomes more structured, the burden often shifts toward documentation. That means you should treat travel like something you track, not something you guess about later. Start keeping a simple travel log today. Write down every departure and return date. Keep flight confirmations or boarding passes when you can. Save copies of travel itineraries. If you're ever questioned at a port of entry or later during a citizenship process, accurate records reduce confusion and reduce the chances of inconsistent answers. If you take longer trips, plan ahead. Make sure you can show continued ties to the U.S., things like active employment, a lease or mortgage, ongoing bills, taxes filed, immediate family ties, and any documents that explain why the travel was temporary. The key is not a dramatic story. The key is evidence that your life is still centered in the United States. And remember, past experience doesn't guarantee future experience. Many people have traveled the same way for years with no issues. But if screening becomes tighter or more automated, what used to be waved through may now trigger extra questions. Preparation turns that from a stressful surprise into a routine checkpoint you can handle calmly. Now, let's address another area that generates a lot of confusion: public benefits. There's a lot of misinformation online, and that misinformation pushes people into fear-based decisions. The safest way to think about benefits is this: eligibility and compliance are not the same as no one will ever ask about it. In a more connected system, certain programs can become more visible in the record, especially when agencies share data. That doesn't automatically mean someone did anything wrong, but it does mean context matters. If you ever use a benefit you're legally allowed to use, keep documentation about the circumstances, why it was needed, how long it lasted, and what changed afterward. If an immigration officer reviews a file years later, they don't know your personal story, they see entries and dates, clear records protect you. Also, don't let fear keep you from essential services you're entitled to, especially in emergencies. If you're unsure, that's the moment to get informed guidance, not the moment to guess. Now let's talk about citizenship, because even if you're not applying soon, the best time to prepare is long before you need to. Naturalization reviews tend to look at consistency over time: taxes, addresses, employment history, travel history, and whether the information matches across documents. The more thorough systems become, the more important it is to keep clean records now rather than scrambling later. So here's a powerful habit: keep copies of your tax returns every year. Save employment documents that show steady work or lawful income. Track address changes. Keep your travel log. If you do this as you go, the citizenship process becomes smoother and less stressful. It's also worth understanding that interviews can feel more detailed than people expect. Officers may ask follow-up questions when there are gaps, like long travel periods, unclear addresses, or employment changes. That doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your file needs to tell a clear story supported by evidence. Now, employment. Green card holders can work in the US, but the modern workplace is also becoming more verification heavy. Employers may recheck eligibility during certain processes, especially if you change jobs, work in regulated industries, or if compliance systems flag inconsistencies. The safest approach is simple: keep your documentation current, keep your biometrics and identity records updated when required, and respond quickly to official notices. If you're ever asked to provide documents for verification, being organized prevents delays that could interrupt your work. Now, one area where the stakes become much higher is anything involving criminal issues. This is not about assuming the worst. It's about recognizing that immigration consequences can be triggered by outcomes in criminal court, even for cases that seem minor. The biggest mistake people make is resolving a case quickly without understanding immigration impact. If you ever have contact with law enforcement, arrest, charges, or a plea offer, get immigration-aware legal advice before you finalize anything. What helps in one system can harm you in the other. Now, let's shift from risks to solutions, because the point of this video is control. Here are the steps you can take starting today to protect yourself under a system that is becoming more documentation-driven. Make sure your address is updated through the official process anytime you move. Don't delay it. Create a simple immigration file. Keep your key documents, notices, and copies of important forms organized and accessible. Start a travel log and keep it accurate. Dates matter. Keep yearly tax records and basic employment documentation. Even if you're far from citizenship, this helps with everything. If you ever use benefits you're eligible for, keep records that explain the situation and show it was temporary and lawful. If you ever face legal trouble, don't make quick decisions without immigration-aware advice. And finally, stay informed through official sources and credible legal guidance. Many problems aren't caused by bad intent. They're caused by missed updates and assumptions based on old rules. If this video helped you understand how to stay protected in a changing system, share it with someone you know who holds a green card. A lot of families don't realize the most important protection isn't panic, it's preparation. And if you want more clear, practical updates like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is general information, not legal advice. For personalized guidance, consult a qualified immigration attorney. Stay organized, stay consistent, and protect what you've worked so hard to build.